Yeah, we don't. What's that you say? Don't penalize the on time people.
Yes, let's not penalize the punctual.
The punctual, right? That's good.
So
Um,
check in.
what's that?
Let's check in. This is the
Oh
dialogue
yeah.
demo, so we check in and dialogue. Yeah,
Sounds great.
right. Um, I can pop first. Um, I want to check in with deep gratitude, Rob, for all the work that you've done in this field on these apps, and feeling very grateful. Feel like there's a lot of abundance around at the moment in our direction, and I am confident and hopeful that the abundance includes us all over time. Had a good night's sleep, had some good breath work yesterday, did some more good breath work this morning, and I've been reminded to start playing music again. So I just posted a video of me playing a birthday song for myself. I had a near-death incident in 2006 when I passed over, so it makes me 19 at midnight. I'm 19 years of age back on the planet. So
Mhm.
happy birthday to New, and I'm grateful that we are here today,
Mm.
um, getting a beautiful dialogic demo on Holistic Systems Cooperative HSC. So checking in with a lot of joy and gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, before I check in, I have yeah, there's a couple of questions that popped in. One is I was wondering you said you played yourself a birthday song. Did you play that on an instrument? And if so, what was that?
Yes, I played an old Irish song called "The Parting Glass." I did part of it in Irish, part of it in English, and I played on my guitar.
On your guitar. Okay. Yeah, I'm always interested what if people play music, what instruments they're playing on. Yeah. And then yeah, I'm curious about the near death experience or passing over and coming back. That might be something to put a pin in for another conversation because it's probably yeah, that but I just wanted to name that my interest is piqued. Um yeah, so checking in with me yeah, all is well. Another beautiful summer day. And yeah, I just I'm coming in with appreciation for you and all of the work that you've done as well. I want to name that and in a new way also because I'd never actually been to your website before. I'd read there was a couple of PDF, documents on aeronomics, right? And I've read those, but I just never had found my way to your website. And I did that this morning because I was like, needed to pull a picture. So I went there and I was like, wow, there's a lot of material on there. So, appreciation there for, yeah, all of the work that you've done. It seems like, yeah, there's a lot of writing there and, um, yeah, you know, and so, yeah, so coming with that and also just, appreciation for you and for whatever, the universe is bringing with you as a vessel to continue kind of the development of, these apps and allowing the sort of the more um, energy to be able to be put into the development of mutual credit and commitment pooling and really, learning more about those and locking in, clear understandings and keeping these possibilities open for that. So, because it's fun. Yeah, so I think that's my check-in and then as far as the demo, there's different. I guess I'd want to to start the demo and check in on what aspects you'd like to go over, or if you have any specific ideas. Um, and what I can share with you to just kind of give you the menu that I'm bringing, right? We have the actual HSC app, right? So we could go through the different functionalities there, and then right have dialogue around that. There's also a very kind of simple, this test app that I'm building for the vouchers for commitment pooling, because really the commitment pooling, the voucher system that's on the HSC app now, like I've said, is um, it's really more of like a mutual credit system than the way that the commitment pooling works. So what I've decided to do is just to say, okay, well, rather than start screwing around with with what's the main app now, I'm going to go and just build it, see about building out like the commitment pooling, that functionality and that back end data architecture and the logic, in its own little space, kind of mimic Seraphoo, and then, then those that can be added in elsewhere. So, we can take a look at both of those things, and then also, if you're interested, this might be beyond it, but if you're interested, there could talk about get a little bit deeper on the differences between mutual credit and commitment pooling, because that's something that, again, as I build these things out, I really have to know I really have to know the differences and how it all works. And so that's something where I'm getting, more understanding, and it's really, it's fascinating, because just to me to learn about that. So, well, yeah, from there, what makes sense to you, or what's calling to you?
Um, all three. So yes, love to see what's currently there. Love to see what you're building in beta for the vouchers, and love to hear about the differences. Just the context. I just want to put it down for the video. Aeronomics is applying for some grant funding to bring together small groups of people. In the Republic of Ireland, we'll bring together a group of 20. In North and South of Ireland, two groups of 12 each. That'll make a group of 24. But each of the applications are to do the same process for them both. Now, what is the process? The process is that all of those members are going to sit in a 3-day residential 6 times together over a period of 12 to 18 months. So they'll be introduced to the mutual credit system. And in the Republic, we're calling it DAGDA. So that's D for the debt-free currency mutual credit. The next one is A, ancient wisdom. They'll sit in a container for that. G, they'll sit in a container to look at generative AI and how to use it to curate the insights and wisdoms. They'll be trained in dialogue and cohesion, which is a methodology to help them get beneath their thoughts into the collective conscious. And then they'll be introduced to an alterative connective healing process, which could be breath work or it could go right up to plant medicine. And then all of that is contained in a commons. So it's a company limited by guarantee with commons guidelines. And then overall, what we'd like to be able to do with that group towards the end is to create what we call a community balance sheet. So we're saying community is a new word because it includes source and nature, and it's unified. And the balancing sheet is that it contains the tangible and the intangibles for the members of that group. So if they represent communities or they represent organizations or bioregions, we collate all the tangibles and intangibles together. So the context of using HSC is to act as the mutual credit glue that keeps it all together. So that's the context in which we're doing it. In relation to the group from North and South of Ireland, we're doing exactly the same thing, but because they're all Africans who live here in Ireland, we're calling that Ubuntu, UBNTU, and it's the same methodology, just we've given them different names because we're applying under a different stream. So we want to use it there. The second context is we want to introduce HSC to a sovereignty club, about 1,800 members. They're busy with learning how to be sovereign, claim their own estates, claim their own names back, and they want to be able to trade with each other as sovereign lawful beings. So you'd like to use HSC as a platform, whether it be customized or whatever, um, as a platform in which they can express themselves as sovereign beings and to create some sovereign wealth together. So that's the context why we're looking at HSE.
Mm.
I just needed to lay down that on the video for anybody that sees it afterwards. And it's only going to do this video will only be shared with people from our own group and community.
Great. All right. Yeah, thank you. Wonderful. Sounds perfect. So, well, why don't I just, start with the app as it is, and yeah, kind of give you the demo there. I know that was the original impetus. So why don't I share my screen? And yeah, all of that is very possibilities are very, yeah, very exciting. I think, right, there's a lot we can do, right? The pieces that I'm hearing from what you described, um, that really can I'm seeing right with this kind of app specifically right is the mutual credit and the different methods of resource pooling and value exchange and also that community balance sheet. I think there's a lot of um, possibility there. So I'll just go through kind of and hit the main pieces here and try not to get too deep, right? So this is right. A home page can be structured any way you like, but the idea was that as we went along, we were seeing that it was helpful for people to have a place to come back to say like, oh wait, what are the different sections that I can use here? With the understanding that people aren't going to just remember this, so they come back and they say, oh, okay, they get a little refresher here, and then you can have whatever. This can be a dashboard or just or nothing. So the kind of piece that is a core piece, really, is a member directory. So, the idea is, right, there's members and then there's the different exchange types. And what we're saying in the HSC app, also, right, I want to say that this app, and as we're going through the demo, I do think it's helpful. And what we're saying is that this app is structured to a particular community, right? And so this is like the HSC version of this, app member portal, right? So as long as we know that, then that's actually helpful because we can see, oh, these are all the ways that an app can be customized to a particular community and to their needs and how they want to use it and what they're trying to get out of it. And so, right, so this is a community of professionals and entrepreneurs who are, coming together to mutually support each other, pool resources, and share value. So, that's why. Okay, so we have the member directory. So when we're filtering here, you can have, because the idea is that there might be lots of people in here, and you want to filter by specific category. So, and the idea is here, professionals, I want to see people who I can find and match up with easily, professional skills categories, right? If I want someone who can do operations, then I filter down to these folks. Okay, that's great. And then I can go in and I can, look at what they're doing and I can see their professional skills. So it's an easy way to then come in and say, okay, well, does this person have the skills that I'm looking for? Okay, operation, time management, meeting facilitation, great. Okay, well, what are their soft skills? Um, Building trust, communication. All right, well, this is good to know about this person. And then, we're also saying, okay, we're saying we have a whole person approach, right, at HSC. And so I can learn about their goals, their challenges. I can learn, more if they've put in. So the idea here is that in a profile for a
Yeah.
member can be as robust or as simple as possible. Maybe it's just you just want basic, simple information and you don't need all of this. Um, and with as far as exchange, right, the other piece, in the member profile is that it connects to each person's specific offerings, right? So their voucher offerings, their needs and offerings. So the idea is I can go in and you know, I can go in via person and see what they have available, or I can go in via kind of the whole list of needs and offerings. And we can also see, okay, what is this person's contribution balance sheet? So again, we're going to get into more of what this means, but here we're using in this community something called contribution accounting, which
Yeah.
is how are we measuring, how are we recognizing and measuring and rewarding people's contributions in a polycapital method, right? So with financial contributions just as one piece. So this is, where they're kind of their account is in regards to that. Okay, so if I go back, then we're going to come back to the member directory. So again, but a community might want to filter and sort by different things. They might not be concerned about professional skills. They might,
Yeah.
want right, but that's all. It's just all open. So yeah, that's the idea, right? And you can go and see anybody's um, member profile. As we've said, I went through that, um, mostly. So I'll move on to the next piece. So, if we come back, then the next piece really is like the exchange. And this is how it's
Sorry,
set up
just one
now.
question
Yeah.
there, Rob. Sorry.
Yeah.
How long do
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
think it would take a new user to set up a reasonable profile for themselves? About a half an hour?
Yeah. I mean, as far as just setting up the profile here, and you can see this is the right. So this is what it looks like on the front end. This is mine. And then this is, my user profile and the control panel. So really the profile, um, to edit the pieces right here, right? So, name, bio, images, location, um, contact
Yeah.
methods. So all of that. Yeah. So I think the amount of time it takes depends on how robust,
Okay.
the information is. But sure, a person could do it in a half hour. I think that the more time, the basic profile, we have this sort of member flow that a person who's just signing up goes through. And most of the kind of profiles, basic profile stuff is set up there. So it's pretty quick to set up the profile. I think that, the pieces that take longer are, to create your needs and offerings, to create your vouchers, right? To talk about who you are as a whole person.
Yeah.
In this case, to think about what are my skills and areas of expertise. So the profile is usually pretty simple, and as you can see, somebody who like Carlos who didn't fill out too much of the information. Well, actually, Carlos filled out a pretty good amount. Anyways, yeah, that was a long answer to your question.
Okay.
Could be, again, basic profile could be 10 minutes, 10 15 minutes, but then depends how robust. So we come back here, right? This doesn't, for the purposes of like, we just want to think about this for the purposes of mobile, right? So for the purposes of mobile, the reason it's set up,
Yeah.
this way with just three columns is that way there's members, there's exchange, right? There's library. This can be set up in any kind of way. It doesn't need to be set up like this, but this way makes it simple. So you go to the exchange tab, and then then you just have your needs and offerings, your vouchers, your contributions. So there's tabs within tabs. There's also right menus um, on the side. So the navigation can be customized, but it's wants to be simple for use. So then we'll get into the three exchange methods, right? Needs and offers, contributions, and commitment pooling. You can always have, right? So ideally, right, there's a lot of in-app tutorials, which is
Okay.
very possible, right? Learn more. So, these can have videos, they can have images in them. There can be little tooltips that pop up, right? So, things of this nature. So I'll move on to go to needs and offerings. Needs and offerings I think about as more informal exchange. I'm also thinking about it in a way of if we're talking about mutual support, there's actually a couple different kinds of like like mutual support, right? There's mutual aid, what we call mutual aid, and then there's what we call mutual credit. And mutual aid is more like it, it can be structured, but it is more, it's not so much like there's an accounting ledger, right? So it's something like, food pantries or, you know, gift circles or sharing, right? So mutual aid is more this kind of informal method, which I think is incredibly valuable. And right, it also has its limitations. So yeah, generally we know what needs and offerings is. So right, the way it's set up here is just there's an offerings tab and then there's the needs tab, right? So I can see the whole list of offerings. And then of course I can, drill into any of those and see that. I can, contact the person. Um, whoops. I can contact the person. I can, see their member profile. We can make comments. So there's a lot you can do there. Um, right, search, filter. We can search by, here we have different types of capital, consulting, coaching. So I like that. We can create, I can create a new offering or need. There's the form, and then I've create that, and then it's going to just show up. Um, and then I can see my list, right? So this is an easy way to see, okay, what are the needs and offerings I have, right? And then because these are mine, right, I can always edit them at any point. Um, I can delete them anytime I want. Um, so that's really needs and offerings. And what happens here generally, it's like if I want to um, take up Saya or I'm interested in this offering, then I'm just going to contact Saya, right? Saya's already going to tell me like, oh, does she need some money? Does she not, right? Open to explore. So that just means, okay, well, this is, probably just something I can connect, right? And these needs and offerings don't need to be one-on-one about, exchanges, but they can be. But again, this is like kind of there's a lot of this like reciprocity in the needs and offerings. Um, So yeah, voucher. So then we have the vouchers, right? So like I said, this is right now a bit of a kind of I don't know. I'm a little frustrated with it, but it's really it just I didn't have time to kind of fully um get it working, properly in commitment pooling methods. So it is really more of like a mutual credit. So the because mutual credit, right? You can see I have a voucher, I have a credit limit. Um, and so something that's been helpful for me to kind of fully wrap my head around is in mutual credit, right? So commitment pooling and mutual credit, they're both like mutual credit systems. So at their root, like they're both credit clearing, right? So um, at the root there, it's just, different people are able to, it's non-monetary exchange, credit clearing. We're giving each other credit. And then, there's kind of group exchange, and then the different credit lines continue to be cleared with each other, um, as opposed to one-on-one method. So with mutual credit, the balance is based on each person. So it's based individually on each person, right? So I have a certain balance, and with that balance, right? And so the group is basically saying, okay, we're going to give each other, everybody gets like a five, dollar credit, limit, or five voucher credit limit. So I can go into debt five in five vouchers, or $5 or $100 or something. Um, and right, and so the credit worthiness is really based on me, and then I can offer and sell whatever I want, just based on that credit limit. Um, and so the difference between that and vouchers is that the credit limit in vouchers, right? And here's just a basic, this is like kind of just this basic app, that's again meant to mimic Serafu, right? There's a pool, and this is somebody's wallet. Um, in commitment pooling, the credit is based on the voucher itself and the pool, right? So it's based on the voucher and the pool. So in other words, right, the pool has, I don't know the number there, but we put a pool limit on it. So I could have like four different kinds of vouchers, and the credit really is the credit that I have with my vouchers is can be different in each pool, but it's based on the pool saying, hey, we're only going to allow like three of these business alignment services in. And then anybody who's holding that voucher, right? If they're holding three business alignment services voucher, then that means they have that credit into the pool, and they can swap in and out. Um, so if we look at how this is set up now, just to kind of go through it, okay, like the vouchers you could consider like in a mutual credit system, like the offerings, or my products or services. So again, there's the same list, and we can go into each one, and there's going to be um, the description. There's a couple of different ways that, right, that mutual credit, that these balance sheets can work, and this is another big difference. And this is more on the back end, but there's something called like an aggregated style, which is what most mutual credit systems have. It's what like Serafu uses. It's really like this. It's the scalable style. Um, And it just means everybody has kind of like the balance sheet, right? So I have like in I have in the case of like synchronicity matchmaking, I might be holding like 1.75 synchronicity matchmaking vouchers. So it just it aggregates that the level that you have. In this method, this is kind of a little bit more simple to build, but it doesn't scale as well. It's more kind of like the NFT method, right? Which is there's a whole voucher ledger. So each one of these vouchers is like its own individual instance. So there's something that I kind of like about that. That's kind of fun. But from a scaling standpoint, it gets past a certain like level of community number of people. Um, it can get more difficult to scale into, and also to put in things like relative value indexing. So, um, but some communities might like it for a certain reason. The only thing the thing that's kind of nice about it is that you can track. So if I open my wallet, right, I can see these are the vouchers that I have. They're sort of like individual voucher instances. So this thing can get moved back and forth, like as if it was its own, tangible like IOU that just like lives forever. And then each one has, has it can have its own history and right. And it was moved, so there's something kind of fun about that where like, I own this voucher and then this person owns it and this person owns it. Um, so in this way, just how it works, right, is if we look at the vouchers in this kind of NFT method, um, right? I have my offerings, right? So this is my offering, and then I can mint, vouchers to new vouchers into the pool, but that means I'm creating new voucher instances. All right, so I just minted one, so there's another, instance of that. Um, And then, right, there's the like kind of the pool or the marketplace, right? So I can put one of mine into the pool. So it's, we initially call it the marketplace, but might call it the pool or whatever. Okay, so I can list that into the pool. So now that individual voucher instance is now in the marketplace, and so I could go and see that. But um But now my credit line is again, this is the way the credit logic works in this system, right? So my credit line now is zero because, I've I've listed into the pool. So if I want to bring my credit line back up, I withdraw it from the marketplace. Um, and then, right, we can go in, you can claim vouchers. So let's say I want one of these. Okay, I really want to, take Paul up on this. So I'm going to go into this voucher I see and I can claim it. And now when I claim it, now I own it. So, and my voucher credit is zero. Um, so Yeah, there's a lot of things that I don't like about this setup. Again, it's fine. I was sort of in process and then right got busy in the launch and all of that. The other thing is that this has right now the way that it works is it has what you have each person has one um like one credit limit, and a better way to do it I think is to have well in this sense I suppose it wouldn't matter. In this sense it'd be nice to have a credit limit for what you can put into the pool, and then a separate credit limit for what you can take out of the pool. Now, if we do this aggregated method, then that's not really necessary. Again, you're seeing there's a lot of different subtleties here and different ways these things can be set up. And they're probably, good for different use cases. The one thing I do want to say, because it's interesting, because you talked about, right, so you asked about this question of like if somebody wanted to, give a loan to someone for 4,000 euros. Um, I think that would work better, that would work better in a mutual credit system than a voucher system. And there's a certain type of mutual credit system that's, if I'm remembering right, it's called like a bilateral. So it's the same mutual credit system where everybody, has kind of can have their own different credit limits. But there's a way you can set that up, which is, kind of an extra level of functionality, so that different people can have different credit limits with each other, right? So then, in this case, I can say, hey, Paul, like right, Saya, you've got $100, worth of credit limit with me, but Paul, I'm going to give you $4,000 worth of credit limit with me, right? And so then now that's on the is on the record, right? And so you and me would then have, have you can go into debt for, 4,000 euros. But it's still in it's still does the multi-person credit clearing. All right, so I'll move on to I hope this is okay. I know it's taking a long time. Um, I'll move on to the final piece, which is contributions. Um, so yeah, so this is kind of the contribution accounting. And yeah, really there's so I think you know how this works, right? But yeah, basically this is like the log, this is the ledger of everybody's, different contributions. Um, and right, you have the types. So this is kind of the main piece, which is essentially saying the contribution types is essentially saying like what is it that this community values, right? So if we're making a ledger, then you can't have right like then you have to have certain what certain pieces, certain types, certain things that you're valuing, right? So it can be anything, right? It can be tangible, intangible. It can be, social capital, experiential capital, intellectual capital, right? So this community is saying, okay, well, we value community engagement, right? Becoming a member, engaging in the community, logging offers and needs. We value like what we're calling community support. So, um, engaging in, facilitating meetings, putting in a monthly membership, being a mentor. We value connections and referrals, right? So if you refer members, if you refer, um, clients to people, um, yeah, if you, yeah, we're calling that connect a collaborator, right? So if I connect you to a collaborator that leads to whatever paid work, all right, we value that. If you, create content for the community, if you run events, financial contributions, okay, you have certain roles and projects. So these are people who are like actually coordinating and running the community. Um, and then there's, miscellaneous ones. Yeah, sharing resources. All right. So basically you have to, that's the idea. You create these contribution types so you can say what is it that we value and then how much do we value them, right? So so we're saying okay, tokens. We're calling these internal kind of contribution tokens. And the way that this is set up to do that is with like relative value indexing. So it's a way to be able to easily continue to customize and refine what it is, that the value of these different items, right? Because if I say, oh, if we say, oh no, actually we want, kudos to be we want it to be worth more. We think it's worth more, and we want to change our minds about that. So then what is that then now the difference between everything else? So you have to like manually adjust everything. With relative value indexing, what you're doing is um, you're creating an anchor. And so for this community, the anchor is this is decided on this contribution, like facilitating a meeting, right? So an anchor could be like an hour of work. So it needs to be something that has some kind of conceptual meaning. In with goods and services, an anchor could be whatever, like a basket of carrots. And all that anchor is it's saying, or it could be, yeah, you could call it like $100. But all it's saying is that like this is something that we are putting as just like the base anchor of this value index. So everything is indexed to this. So so we say, okay, well, we know generally what it takes to facilitate a meeting, right? So somebody has to has to show up. They're going to basically be like 2 hours of their time. It's their energy. So what are we saying that that's worth? Now, what what that takes is is another conception of like a measure of account. And so there's different measures of account, right? If you're doing all, if it's only hours, right, then that can be simple. But if you want to extend beyond that, so what we're doing is we're saying, um, let's start the unit of account so we can conceptualize with like dollars or euros. So it isn't that this is dollars, but it's basically saying, okay, well, we're going to say facilitating an HSC meeting. If we had to measure that in dollars, right, instead of like measuring in inches, if we had to measure that in dollars, we'd say, okay, we'll call it $100. All right, and so then everything is then indexed towards that. So we're saying, okay, well, then what is it? What's the value of being a note taker? Relative to that. So, okay, all right, well, I have to be at the meeting. I have to spend my time. I have to pay attention. I know I'm not facilitating. So we'll call, so maybe that's like $15, right? Okay, so then that gets a relative value index of 0.15. And now these things can be adjusted, anytime, right? And that's, there's this little fun kind of community sentiment thing. So, um, one person here downvoted it and said, no, we think this should be worth less. And I might, upvote it.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so the reason, that I think this is important, so it's important here with the community contributions. So now everything gets, when we change one of these, it just gets changed relative to everything else. Um, and this is also something that, happens with the commitment pooling, right? So, you could imagine that each voucher is going to have its own relative value index. And this is, so this is set up on Serafu, right? And so that starts to get into the community with commitment pooling, the community curation. So both of this, you might call all of this community curation, right? Because the community is saying, what do we value? What contributions do we want to measure? And how do we value them? Same thing with the vouchers, which is, okay, somebody is saying, I'm coming in with an hour of my services, and the community is saying, okay, well, what do we value? Do we value, how do we value accounting services compared to, like care services? So the community can, decide that. Um, so then, right, a person now that we have contributions, right? So in this sense, a person can then just add contributions. And there's different ways, as far as verifying, but okay, I added a template to the library. When did I do that? Today. Any details? Um, Submit. Usually it should just submit, but this is something where I don't know. I have to make a better system in the back end. Okay, but here is my contribution. So now these 25 tokens just went onto my balance. Um, excuse me. We can see on the token log that showed up here, and we can see it's unverified. So there is a way where
Yeah.
we don't just want anybody to be adding a million things. Right. So these need to be, they need to be verified, right? So there's got to be a process for that. There's different ways that can be set up, but essentially, one thing I might do is I might request verification. So I'm gonna, so usually there's somebody who might know that. So I might say, okay, Paul, knows that I did this. I'm going to send verification. That's going to get sent to him, and then he knows that he should come here and verify this.
Okay.
Um,
So I'm getting an email now. Just want to respond to it. Just show it's live. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Oh, and so here's something from Paul who requested verification, I think from me. So now if I know did that, okay, I can verify. And this is, where you can also start to get into, things that have been called like appreciations or applause or, things like that, which I think is a great piece and something that can be on a community feed. So, I can write, you did this. Thanks so much. All is great. So, so then I verify that. And right, that's something that is in our record, the that appreciation. And so those can get logged in different places. But now those can get shown, right? Like on the home feed, and that's not set up, but that's pretty easy on a home feed, right? I think what would be nice is kind of a feed of the different things that are happening, right? Oh, okay, this exchange happened. This voucher was redeemed. Oh, here's appreciations, for somebody. Um, I think that's a nice way to have, you know, people kind of can be engaged. Um, right. And so then we can send tokens to people. There's something that is,
Okay.
right. I
I'll just
can,
verify that now from my phone.
oh, look at that.
Boom.
Do, do, do. Now it's verified.
Yeah.
Ideally, again, this can get put in, right? Ideally, like the tokens don't actually go onto the person's account until it's verified. So
Yeah.
that's, that there's an easy check there. There's there's also something that we wanted to put in, right? So right now I can send tokens, so I can, I can send, whatever I want to Paul. But also there's a way where the community can create a pool of like gratitude tokens.
Yeah.
And so there could be a pool that, everybody gets a certain amount every month of tokens, but you can only send those.
Yeah.
So, right, then we're getting into, when we talk about these tokens, then it's like, well, what do you do with the tokens? Then we're talking about like more there's kind of different choices as far as like the utility of these tokens. Um, the way that HSC had it designed, right, is that these tokens convert into voucher credits.
Okay.
So, there's also a way where, they could be worth things for internal rewards, right? They're also just worth kind of like reputation. So we can see you can have a dashboard with lots of stuff. So you can see, oh, these are the most active members, right? So I have all these tokens. The idea is that a community can create just a token economy. And that's happening a lot. Um, and that's something like I've mentioned to you, right? That's something that for HSC, we decided that we didn't want to have a token economy, meaning like, okay, now we're paying with tokens because then, there's a couple of, challenges that can come in. First it's like, okay, well now you have a token, you have something that's an abstraction of the actual value, right? Just like our currency, it's one step removed from the value. It's an abstraction. It can start to be commodified. And also, if you just have if you just have a token economy, then you also have kind of this like cold start problem, which is okay, now everybody has a bunch of tokens. Great. Now like, I want to, buy or exchange something from you, but who's going to like be the person to get started, right? Um, who's going to, like how is that economy going to get going? It's the same, there are these cold start problems with all of these, with mutual credit included. The reason I like One reason I really do like, commitment pooling is that there's a way where with commitment pooling, you ha- like you a group can add value into the pool right away. Whereas, a mutual credit, you're basically saying, okay, now we all have credit. Now we need to start buying and selling from each other. But with commitment pooling, I'm saying, okay, well, I have to give to get. So I'm going to put in what the community considers valuable. And then there's already like this pool that's of value that's created. That's not an abstraction. Um, so Yeah, so I think that's it, right? And then there's other pieces that you can have. And this is not set up, but it would be great to have some communications functionality in here. We do have like set up like a library, right? So this could be like a resources library where people can add in different resources, links, templates, things like that, right? There can be a community journal, right? This is something like community notes. People can, write notes to each other. You have our, like community agreements in here. So ideally, in the long-term picture, it'd be great to have some governance and decision making um, functionality in here. Right? So it doesn't need to be so complex, but it could be, right, something where people create proposals and then, vote on them. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so that kind of went through a lot. I don't know, how if that that helped or not, but I'll pause there. Okay. Oh, there's some questions that you're putting in. Would you like me to answer those questions?
Um,
Um,
just before you do,
yeah.
take a breath. Do you want to take some water or a cup of tea or?
Oh, thank you. I love this stuff. I mean, once I get going, I could talk about it for hours. But actually, I let me take a quick bio break. That would be wonderful.
Indeed, indeed.
I'll be back in very shortly. Okay. So, and just, one thing to say is that this demo, right? I'm demoing it in a way that's like to somebody who would be, I imagine, more of like a steward or a, builder or a leader of the community, right? If I was, there would be the demo would be different, I think, if it was just demoing it to a user, right? That would be much more kind of user centric, less like of the many explanations and just more like, hey, you want to exchange? This is how you do it. These are the buttons you press. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I can answer those questions, but I will pause there and see if, yeah, see what if there's anything that's coming in for you.
Um, so right now, I just want to honor that everything works. So, the, so congratulations, Bessie, and all that. The interface is nice. It's easy, easily understandable. So just want to congratulate you. And as I may have said to you last night, I I created a link on my mobile phone where I just put the URL, which is in the chat. So I created a little home button, and I was having a conversation with a technology guy from India, and I literally just opened it up, logged in, and I handed it over to him, and I felt so confident that things were going to work. And he scrolled up and down, and he went in and out, and he said, yes, he said, on technology readiness, if you're in a technology incubator in Ireland at this time, on a scale of 1 to 5, you'd be at a 3. And I went, wow, okay, I must tell Rob. So you're at a technology readiness of, halfway towards, venture funding. Not that we're going to go that route, however, our funding is more sacred than venture capitalists.
Hmm.
So I just want to honor you with all that. And then these questions here. So yeah, just walk through those questions in the chat. And then you're gonna show us the other demo one. You're gonna the voucher
Uh,
one.
yeah, I can show that real quick.
Yeah.
The Yeah, so okay, so that's a good question about the language. If the apps can be multilingual. Um, it's a good question. I don't know in regards to Glide apps, if it can just be translated. I've started working in another app builder called Bubble. It's a no-code app builder. It's actually much more robust in its functionality.
Yeah.
I'd have to check, but I think it might have I think that one does have like multi-language functionality. So yeah, not sure on Glide apps. It's a great question. Um, the other thing is, yeah, I guess you could just make a. Mm, I mean, you can make a duplicate of the app, right, and then just like translate, which is more of like kind of a hard
Yeah.
language difference, but that's not ideal. Um, all right, as you're thinking about, yeah, filling in forms with a voice recording, which AI can then upload into the form. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Todd, who is, I can even show you how this works, but you might not need to know. But Todd is working on another app, um, in the same builder, Glide Apps, and actually just created that functionality. It's very cool where you do a voice recording, and this is to measure. This is I don't know, you might want to see it, but basically it's to like it's talking about a contribution, but basically you just speak whatever you did, and then it parses out what that is, and then sort of has the little oh, okay, you did this, the resource, right? You created this, um, and you don't even have to type it, right? You just do a voice recording. So the answer is yes to that. There's a lot of AI integration here that I haven't even I've just scratched the surface. Um, okay, yeah. So who sets the credit limit? So essentially the community sets the credit limit,
Yeah.
and that's really in right. So in mutual credit, but like there's right. It's kind of what is each person's credit worthiness.
Yeah.
So again, this goes back to the way that they work, right? So in mutual credit, it's really based on the person. So their reputation. Somebody comes in, they get a lower credit limit, as they stay in the community more and people, trust them more, right? Then you can raise your credit limit. And that uh, it's actually I don't know if you read Will's one of his articles on like what Visa is doing or what Visa created and D Hawk. But those are really good. It's very cool because essentially like he's saying like what Visa does is essentially commitment pooling, and it's like mutual credit. Um, and so, it's the same thing um, with commitment pooling, but it's really like the community curators. And so again, it's not based on the person, it's based on the voucher. So the
Yeah.
credit limit is like how many of these vouchers do we want to allow into the pool?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. Um, and again, that's the right and one of these cool things about commitment pooling, right, is that you can have lots and lots of pools, and each pool, you know, is that group gets to decide how many to of each voucher to allow in and what the relative value index is, how they value that voucher.
Yeah.
So um, how are these values? Oh, yes. How are the values set up on the systems? When you say you asked how are these values set up on the system? Is that like the relative value indexing?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I saw you doing it. Well, I didn't see you do the relative value. I just saw you saying it was worth $300 or yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So basically it's just there's a table. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a data table. Again, I can show you, right? But it's just a data table that has that has each contribution type and then what its relative value index is. And then when you change one of them on the relative value index, it changes everything else. Um, so they're dynamic fields. So it's really a table on the back end. But then what I would do did not have the time to do this. But then what you do is you create an admin
Yeah.
um, dashboard, right? So a person, so then anybody who's a curator or an admin can have a front end user interface to then just enter those numbers in,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So they're not doing it on the back end like tables.
Yeah. Yeah. Clear.
Yeah, and yeah. So and then what is the scale this is built for, right? How many users? I mean, it really depends on the like the commitment pooling part. So I would need to set up I need to set up the commitment pooling in this kind of aggregated data method, which is what I want to do anyways. And once that's set up, then that scales for more users and more pools. Right now, um, the commitment pooling could probably do like maybe a couple hundred,
Okay.
users without maybe getting too out of control. Everything else, it's a good question. Everything else, I think you can get into the users. I don't know, maybe I'd have to check it out more. It's a good question. I don't know that I have like a great answer for, but you know, when things are set up properly, I think maybe in the thousands.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know, that's just my guess. Like maybe in the thousands. I don't know about like over 10,000 users that might be passed,
Okay. And just in terms of
but
hosting,
I'm
it's
not sure. It
hosted
could be more. Yeah.
through Glide apps, is it?
So right now it's hosted through yeah, it's hosted through Glide apps, and that's how it works. Right, and the costs, is based on usage, on activity.
Yeah.
right? So that's why, right now we're not, it's relatively inexpensive for us to be building these and using them because, there's not a lot of usage. Once we get, more people and a bunch of people interacting, right, then there would be,
Yeah.
kind of fees that go in there.
Got it.
Um,
Okay, thank you. All the questions answered. So just give us a quick look now at the community commitment pooling app. Sorry, commitment pooling app.
yeah. So this is just a very right now, I don't have most of the actual like functionality built out. This is really just, a way of, kind of mirroring Seraphoo, right? So this is like a person's wallet.
Yeah.
Um, see, that's weird. I shouldn't. Anyways, this is a person's wallet, right? And then these are, the pools. Um, And then this is kind of like the basic pool functionality, right? So you can swap, you can see, right, each of the vouchers, how much is holding the rate. And so that's kind of what I've, started to set up here, right? So what I'm tr was trying first is to set up the initial MVP that I can get up more quickly is like that this and the NFT version, right? Where each voucher is its own, right? You have like the actual voucher offering,
Yeah.
which is like these business alignment services,
Yeah.
but each voucher is its own instance.
Okay.
But this, yeah, so this kind of mimics that. Now, so that's an MVP I could get up pretty quickly. Um, and it also depends on, right, what else I have going on. The MVP of the more aggregated style, right? Which is like Seraphoo, which is, basically what we're saying is, I have 4.48 of these vouchers. So, to redeem it, right? So I have zero point 0.9 of the BABA. To redeem it, I'd need to have a whole one, but it does just aggregate it. Um, Yeah, and then this is just one pool. Again, just like in Seraphoo, right? You have one pool. There's multiple pools, and this is the interface. This is the same thing, right? So here's the vouchers in the pool, right? And so then you have the limit. So I'm holding, this pool has, one out of, and then there would be a maximum, one out of like 10 or one out of whatever. And then you can it's not, again, it's not set up, but you can see the alignment, right? This is so there's not too much to show because I haven't had time to really like finish the actual functionality, but that's, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. So then just to wrap up in a few minutes, you said you'd speak about the differences between mutual credit and commitment pooling.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I did, I know I did some of that, but so right. So one of the differences is like where where the credit like limit lives, right? And mutual credit lives with the individual. And with commitment pooling, it lives with the voucher and the pool. Um, another another difference is like how uh, is in the way that credit is that the exchange happens, right? And so in mutual credit, um, it's more like buying and selling.
Okay.
So it's more like buying and selling, and each person, it is more like buying, selling, and kind of like each person has their account balance.
Yeah.
And with commitment pooling, it's more of like a give to get,
Okay.
right? so I don't just come in and like get a balance,
Okay. Yeah.
right? What I do is I have to come in and I have to, go into debt, into the pool.
Yeah.
Um, right. So, and to do that, right, I have to also have something that the pool considers valuable. And so there's only, in commitment pooling, yeah, the difference is that what you have is, access to a pool.
Yeah.
Um, right. And so there's no kind of claiming or, it's just swapping in and out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, look at my notes here, see if there's any other pieces. Yeah, and so I think uh they both have merit. My right as we go along, and sort of in this use case, that you're bringing in the aeronomics, right? Like I think there can be a lot of experimentation. Um, and so mutual credit might work. Mutual credit kind of works, seems like it works more for like businesses or larger entities.
Okay.
That it works, seems like it can work well there because businesses just kind of like need lines of credit with each other, right? So it's like, okay, I'm selling, widgets and I need, you know, um, a doodle dingle part, to build my widget, right? So I have lines of credit with the doodle dingle part people. And then I build my widgets and those widgets, get supplied to another, endeavor entity or institution, right? And then they're right. And so then they have credit with
Yeah.
and I think commitment pooling, at least, from the surface level, might have I kind of think it might work better for like individuals and smaller entities,
Yeah.
smaller businesses.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it is sort of inherently more kind of, personal, at least
Yeah.
at the pool level. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Great. Okay, brother. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Let's check out and close the recording, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope this was helpful.
It was helpful to me. What I'm ready to do now is to share this video with others and say, okay, let's go and set up some member profiles. Let's get some stuff moving between us so that people can have use cases in their minds about how to use it. So I'm very grateful. The URL is in the chat there for anybody that wants to access it. So I'm feeling very grateful and thank you.
Mm, you're welcome. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for your interest and attention. Yeah, really appreciate it. And again, it's just very exciting for me to, think about, right, the possibility of in, implementing it into communities and trying these use cases and saying, well, yeah, okay, what are people interested in? What do they like? What do we try? How do we incorporate the different pieces in? Yeah, so I'm excited about that, and yeah, we'll try to keep up with the creation work.
Brilliant. Just gonna stop the recording now.